Okay, so let's move our camera around so that we get all the text in there. We'll scoot it over and zoom out. And this is the great thing about being in a 3D environment is you can just move the camera around. You can get all these crazy angles. I mean, we're not at a crazy angle, but of course we can scoot things around like this or, whatever we want to do. In this case, we're just lining things up pretty straightforward because we're setting the logo up. But once it's done, we can, move the camera around and get any type of angle that we want. We've got a kind of atom, we want an atom nucleus in here. And we're going to have flowing energy flowing up from the bottom of the T, arcing down, swooping up and going through the atomic nucleus, swooping back up and arching over and going down to the end. So the first step is to create that atomic nucleus. And to do that, we're going to go up to our Object menu and select Create 3D Primitive. And by default, that's going to create a sphere, which happens to be exactly what we want. If you wanted something different, you could go into the Object menu and change that to a cube or a cone or a torus, which is a donut. Do you want a donut? There's a donut. Because we all like donuts. But in this case, we want a sphere. And we want the sphere to be a little bit smaller. So we're going to set it to about 28. We're going to move that sphere around to make it be centered right in between our text. And Invigorator has a few different modes, so we can rotate objects, we can move them around. And so if I want to move my sphere, I need to switch to object mode, grab my move tool, and just kind of scoot it into place. Cool. So that looks great, sort of, except I've got a white plastic ball there, which is not really all that interesting. So what I want to do is make this a blue energy ball. So to do that, I'm going to select the texture that I just saved out, the texture that I used on my text. And you can see that we already start to look a bit better here. But I'm going to make some changes to that. So I'm going to, again, open this up in my material editor. I'm going to change the color to blue. Click OK. And then the thing that you're going to notice is that if I render this out, the transparency map we're using makes the ball transparent at the top and the bottom. And I don't really want that in this case. It works fine for the text, but for my atomic nucleus, I want it to kind of be all the way around. So I'm going to use the same texture that I'm using for the reflection map. So I can click on this, and I'm going to go down to, again, my Zaxworks folder, go to 3D Invigorator, go to the Zaxworks maps, and this is where all the texture maps are. So there's lots of different maps in here that you can use and make cool things out of. But in this case, we're going to select whoa. Things that make you go whoa. And so you can see that once I do that, it's going to look a little bit better. We're going to have it all the way around, and it's going to look much more like a glowing nucleus, because that's what we want. We want a glowing nucleus. Okay, so now that we've got that finished, let's open up some Illustrator files and see how to work with those. Okay, so the first step is to go up to the Object panel and select Open Illustrator File. And we're going to pull in this thing called Yoga Swoosh. Swoosh. Because everybody needs a swoosh. And so it comes in pretty huge. That's not really what we're looking for. So we're going to scale this down. Again, I'm in object mode. And I'm going to select the scale tool. And I'm going to start moving that down. And let's scoot this over a little bit. Okay, so that looks fine. Now, the thing about Illustrator files is there's a whole different tutorial on how to prepare Illustrator files. But it is important to watch that if you're going to use Illustrator files, because there's all sorts of tips and tricks to getting the most out of using Illustrator. 3D Invigorator pulls them in a very specific way, and they need to be prepared in a very specific way if you're going to get what you think you're going to get. But in this case, I have definitely gotten a swoosh, and that's what I expected to get. And in this case, we're going to make a couple changes. We're going to change the depth to 10. We're going to make a thinner swoosh. And we're going to change the bevel to a half pipe because we want a smoother, rounder edge on our swoosh. Changing the bevel to a half pipe is going to get things much smoother and more interesting. And so once we've done that, we can come in and take the material that we have saved from the nucleus ball, and we can apply it to our swoosh. So now the swoosh has that, and if we render all that out, you can see what that looks like. And again, once we pull this into Photoshop and add a glow to it, it's really going to look pretty cool and interesting. But that's only half of the swoosh, so we want to take this and we want to duplicate it. And in 3D Invigorator, you duplicate stuff by going up to your object menu and clicking on the duplicate button. And that will duplicate the swoosh. And we can now rotate that around. And now we can move that into position. And this is going to be a little bit small because the fusion part of it is larger than the tech part. So we're going to scale it up. We're going to stretch it out. So now if I render that out, you can see what we're getting. And I'm going to take this back into Photoshop. So I'm going to click OK, come back out to Photoshop. It's going to render it out to my Smart Object layer. So now I'm going to show you why having things applied as smart filters is such a cool thing. Because we want to apply a glow to this, but because the text and our energy ball swoosh thing are different colors, we want to have different colored glows. And you can't do that if they're all sitting on one layer. So what I can do is duplicate this layer. And then I can go into each instance. And so like for the top one, I'm going to delete the energy ball and swoosh. We'll select it, click delete, select the energy ball, click delete, select this bottom swoosh, click delete, and we'll click OK and go back into Photoshop. So this layer is just going to have our text on it. And then we'll do just the opposite to the bottom layer, which will have the energy ball and other stuff on it. So we'll just select our tech characters there and click delete. Okay, so now all that text is deleted, and we'll click OK. And so now you can see that if I turn this off, that gets rid of the energy ball and swoosh. If I turn this off, it gets rid of the text. So now we can start adding on a glow. Go to Layer Style, go to Outer Glow. In this case, we're going to set this to kind of again, a warm yellow color. Almost an orangey color. And fiddle with the size and spread settings to get something that we like. And then we'll do the same thing to the energy ball and swoosh, coming up to its layer, giving it an outer glow. And we'll change this to blue. And make a few more adjustments, and you can see that we've got kind of a nice blue glow to that, and we'll click OK. And that's our final image. So thank you for joining me. Hope you've enjoyed creating this funky, cool tech fusion, and hopefully it's cleared up some confusion for you. And if you like this, there's lots more on digitalanarchy.com. You can check out all the tutorials we have for both 3D Invigorator and all of our other products. So thanks for joining me, and see you next time.